A lot of us get hurt, get upset when we're being accused for or being punished rather for something we know nothing about. Now imagine somebody that was killed like the most painful death because of something he knows absolutely nothing about. So today we're going to talk about an African American child named Justine who was born in October 1929 by George Junior Stinney and Hammy Stinney. Justine has two sisters and one brother rather. His sister's name is Catherine Stinney and Hammy Stinney, while his brother's name is Charles Stinney. They live in their hometown in Alcolu, South Carolina. Stinney's father worked in the town sawmill and the family resides in the company's housing. On the 23rd of March 1944, when George was only 14, his life took a turnaround when the bodies of two girls, Betty and Mary, were found on a ditch in the African American side of Alcohol town. George and his brother were arrested on suspicion of murdering the girls. His elder brother was released from the police custody, but George was held in custody. He wasn't allowed to see his parents until after his trial and conviction. His arresting officer, H.S. Newman, made a statement that he arrested a boy who made a confession to him that he killed the girls and also took him to where he hid the iron that he used in the girls. Following George's arrest, his father was fired from the local sawmill, so the family was made to vacate the company's property. The family feared for their safety. George's parents were not allowed to see him before his trial. He had no support, he had no lawyers, he had nobody. Other than the testimony of three officers, the trial prosecutor brought forth three witnesses: Reverend Francis Burton, who found the body, and the two doctors who cross-examined the bodies of the girls, and the court were allowed to discuss the possibility of RAPE because of the older sister Benny Gentiles was damaged. Judge counsel did not call in any witnesses, did not examine any witnesses. It was given little or no defense, and the trial session lasted for about 2.5 hours. Between the time of his arrest and his execution, George's parents were allowed to see him only once under the threat of lynching, and they were not allowed to see him again. Stinney was executed on Friday, June 1944 at 7:30 a.m. He was prepared for execution by electric chair using a Bible as a booster seat because George was too small for the chair. He was restrained by his arms and body to the chair. An officer asked George if he has any last word. He shook his head and said no. The executioner pulled a strap from the chair and placed it over George's mouth, causing him to tear, and then placed the face mask on his face, which did not fit him as he continued sobbing. When the lethal electrical was applied, the mask covering his face removed and tears was coming down his eyes. He was crying. The electric went through his body and he died. That was how George Stinney died at 14. So many years later, in 2004, a local historian named George Ferguson, who grew up, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, who grew up in Alcolu, started researching the case after reading it in a newspaper article. He gained the attention of South Carolina lawyers who contributed. After many hours of reviewing historical documents, they found witnesses and evidence for exonerating George Stinney. New evidence in court hearing in January 2014 included George's siblings that were there with him at the time of the murder, and I feel that there was introduced from the Reverend Francis, who found the girl's body. In his statement, recalls that there were no much blood on the girls when he found the body, suggesting that they were killed somewhere else and moved to the ditch in alcohol. Johnny Hunter, who was in prison with George at that time, said that the teenager kept on saying he was made to confess, but he was innocent. So the confession that George made was forced out of him. Steve Mackenzie, along with the other Anthonys, filed a motion which says, if we can get the case reopened, we can go to the judge and say, there wasn't any reason to convict this child. There was no evidence to present to the jury. There was no transcript. This case needs to be reopened. This is an injustice that needs to be corrected. I am pretty optimistic that if we can get the witnesses we need to come forward, we will be successful in court. We hopefully have a witness that's going to say that a non-family, non-relative witness who is going to be able to tie all this and say that they were basically an alibi witness. They were with Mr. Stinney, and this did not occur. Steve Mackenzie. There was also a culprit who is now deceased and was said to be a member of a prominent white family whose family member was a coroner inquest jury, which recommended that George should be prosecuted. After George Stinney's exoneration, his family was compensated with $10 million.